We're excited to be here. We are Sisters Against Kidney Disease, and we are partnering with Urban Health Outreach Media, and we thank them for this opportunity and this platform. We're excited to be here. We are Sisters Against Kidney Disease, and we are partnering with Urban Health Outreach Media. And tonight we have an amazing guest. I'm so honored to show the world that kidney disease is a community, and it takes the love and support of wonderful people like our very own Stephanie Stevens. Hi, Stephanie.
Hey, my friend. You look great. Nice to
Oh,
see you.
thank you. You too.
Thank you. A little chilly here in the Fredericksburg area.
Well, I would like to say we're twins because it's a little cold here in Georgia as well.
Mhm.
So,
Love
all
it.
right.
Glad to
Now,
be here with you.
and first, let me say thank you so much for agreeing to do this because I realize that your time is so valuable, and as a caregiver, when
Hmm.
you do have those down moments, sometimes you need that time just to be Stephanie. But
Right.
if you don't mind, if you would so graciously give us just a brief bio. Who is Stephanie?
Ah, she's a 54-year-old woman that lives in Fredericksburg, Texas with an amazing husband, David. And I have a daughter that's a senior in college in Dallas, Texas, and a stepson that's at Baylor University, and a stepdaughter that's in high school in Waco. And just loving on my mom and dad at this point, at this stage in their lives. And my sister's helping with that process as well. So, yeah, lover of people, connector of people, heart for service. That's
Okay.
me in a nutshell.
Well, I'm thankful that you are all that in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Stephanie, now the purpose of the show, right? Sisters Against Kidney Disease, um, is something that's near and dear to my heart because I am a CKD warrior, but I don't want to focus on myself. This show is to just show the different aspects of sisters on this journey, whether you are a warrior or a
Mhm.
caregiver, an advocate, or a supporter. Stephanie, what part of this journey is your story?
Mm. Well, my role is really to love and support my mother and my father through, like I said, this stage in their lives. My mother she's starting her, just started her 12th year on dialysis. Actually, found out that she had kidney disease about 12 years ago. And there was a point where they were going to put her on dialysis, and we thought that was still 6 months out. And, out of nowhere, she had congestive heart failure, was rushed to ER, intubated, and on that day, dialysis began. So the role has really been to just be overseer and caregiver and daughter of an amazing woman, to just support her however we can.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so your mom's diagnosis was so unexpected and it was
Mm.
so quickly. How do you prepare in the midst of the actual storm?
In the midst, you respond like anybody, right?
Right.
People come together, as you've seen in every type of situation where tragedy occurs or something desperate happens, and you're not expecting it at that moment. You just, in our case, there was a period of waiting to see what the doctor's assessment was, and
Right.
then once you get the information, you collect the information, then you really get to understand what the options are and what steps to take forward. And as a family, that's what we did. We came
Right.
together, and my mother and my mom and dad's friends and our friends, my sister and my friends, came together and said, how can we support, and what's the best strategy for her. So,
Right.
and I'll tell you what's interesting to me is that, so my mother was diagnosed with lupus in the 70s, 1970s. And so I remember as a child, she was tired many times. And her friend Mary would take me and my sister up to the dime store to buy candy and kind of fill in, and I realized later in my life that that was really the lupus that was affecting her energy level. And then as she grew older, then, we realized that the lupus had actually affected the kidneys, the heart, the lungs, which it is known as the great imitator. And so when she actually was rushed into the emergency room that day, we knew that the lupus was the cause of all of these things that were happening, but we really didn't know, what would happen next. So what I was going to say is then began this journey of, my mother and our family, my mother, we were brought up with a thing of Crisco sitting on the stove, and everything was fried. The chicken was
Right.
fried, the bologna was fried, the ham was fried. It was all fried,
Right.
And so that's how we ate. And she was all of 5'1" and 180 pounds, 200 pounds, heavy for her frame. And that's just how we lived. And we fried our fish in that Crisco too, right? Everything was fried in
Right.
Crisco. But anyway, so she was heavy. So, diet and exercise, as play a big part of that. And it wasn't until that health scare that she started to really focus on diet and exercise. And because at that point she started focusing on it, I think that's really one of the things that attributes to her long journey on dialysis of 12 years, because that's not the common scenario. It usually doesn't last that long. But with that health scare, she just began to really focus on what she ate, diet, exercise. Isn't that ironic? So I love, Steve's, his message is, let's focus on those things before it happens. Let's take preventative measures. So yeah, that was a long answer, but yeah,
No. So here's the thing.
informative.
Because this is such a meaty and heavy subject, right? Kidney disease is something that a lot of people are not aware of, right? You hear kidney disease, most people think it could be some person or someone that's later on in life. But this disease is impacting babies, children, teenagers, people in their 20s, 30s, their early 40s, 50s. I mean, this disease does not discriminate.
No,
And a person can look like the pillar of health and they could be a walking time bomb and not know. So I thank you for that answer, because you touched on things that I think most people know, but they take for granted. You said 12 years on dialysis, and you attribute that to dietary changes. So you have seen firsthand what something as simple as tweaking the way you eat can help prolong your life, even while you're
right.
facing a chronic illness.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing is, some people that, as that find out they have some type of kidney disease will make it onto a donor list. And I know you're on that list, right?
Thank
And
God. Yes.
thank God. And we pray that that donor is, God is preparing that donor for you now. Your paths will
Amen.
cross at just the right time. You see, my mother never had that option because she had lupus. She was not in a position to be on a donor list. So, and the thing is, it's a crapshoot. You never know. Just because you're 30 something and you're diagnosed with kidney disease, or 60 something in her case, there's no guarantee that you get to swap it out for a healthy kidney.
Right.
And so, clearly at any point where this awareness is created, and, we as a society start making better choices and educating our children on making better choices and incorporating good diet and exercise, it's critical. And I really think that, unfortunately, most people don't focus on that until it's too late. And then when they find out, it's ironic that a lot of people still won't focus on it. I guess it's human nature, right? But some people won't. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when you find out, because I know for myself, I was very fortunate and I'm very blessed that I do have the option of getting a transplant.
Yes.
But you mentioned that was not something that was an option for your mom. How has that option, and dialysis being the only course of treatment right now, how did that shape and shift your mother and you as a family?
Yeah, that is a loaded question, my friend. And I'll tell you, it's been an absolute blessing to watch her navigate this process, and for us as a family to really come together in support of her and her new community of friends. Because let's face it, when you spend 4 hours 3 times a week on dialysis and you've been doing it for 12 years, a couple of things happen. You see a lot of the employees that come and go, turnover, right? So
Right.
you're building relationships always with new people, and you see the patient population change because unfortunately, some people can come in for 3 years and then that's really the end of their journey. Or some people come in for 2 months and they get that kidney and they're out of there and they're coming back in and just saying hey from time to time, right? Because they've never forgotten those faces.
Right.
But the bottom line is, I'll tell you that my parents both created a foundation of faith for me and for my sister. And so I've seen my mother and my father demonstrate a heart for service my whole life. But to watch my mother step into this role of, little angel there at the Davita clinic, where,
Right.
at her worst, I could come in, like the last 2 years for her have been the most challenging. More things happening with the lupus, more things happening with her health, where she hasn't been as strong. And so I've spent more time there with her. At one point, literally transporting her from a wheelchair into her dialysis chair.
Yeah.
The thing that was the most impressive to me was the way the staff rallied around my mother because of her attitude, and the way that the other people that are on dialysis rallied around my mother. So, for example, there people would come to me and say, "Do you know your mother's such a blessing in our lives? She's such a joyful person, and she was such an encourager." I've only been on dialysis for 5 years, but she was here the very first day, and she's the one who said to me, "It's really not that bad. You can do it, and it'll be okay." And so, even today, she brought in a letter. I was at the assisted living facility that she's living in right now, and she brought in a note from one of the as a daughter-in-law of a gentleman who recently passed away. And she said, and it was in October that he passed. And she said, "My family and I just wanted to bring you this gift and this card to say thank you, that, he was not a very social person, and yet he would always come home and talk about this
Wow.
woman, Gwen, who would love on him." So how's the journey unfolded? How's it affected us? I mean, in a miraculous way. I mean, it's taught us to really cherish every single moment of every day. It's taught us to really put aside differences, because families, there's always some drama going
Yes.
on, right? Ours is not
Right.
included. And so, just how do we make it? How do we make the situation? How do we make the most out of the situation? But for me, the most amazing thing is watching this beautiful woman choose joy every single day.
Isn't that such a blessing? I tell people now,
Mhm.
on this journey, even though I didn't choose it,
Mhm.
God still
Mhm.
saw fit to allow me to thrive even in that. And just hearing that your mom is a 12-year
Mm.
warrior and her joy and her spirit is contagious.
Yes.
So, as that, how do you pass that on to your children? Like, you see what your
Mhm.
mother's legacy is. What is
Yeah.
your legacy in the midst of all this?
Wow, good questions. The thing that's really amazing is that my daughter, who's now 21, she'll be 22 in
Okay.
January. She has been a big part of my parents' life from the time she was an infant. And so, she also has had the same experience that I had and that my sister had, in this example of what it means to have a heart for service, and to be inclusive of all people. And, she's just grown up in that environment where we love people no matter what, right? And
Right.
appreciate differences. And she's a very strong and independent young woman. But she loves her Grams and her granddad. And, I think if anything, it's really about faith. And, you just hang in there, you do what you got to do, you gut it up and you do whatever you have to do, we figure it out. That's our program,
Right.
so love. I think that's the legacy. Faith and love. I'd take that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I like that. I think one, we are kind of scared to talk about faith because we want to
Yeah.
be politically correct. And I
Yeah.
tell people all the time, I will never force my Jesus on you, but I will love you so hard that you'll want to know him.
Yeah. That's
So, you
right.
know.
That's right. I love that. I love that. Or I like to say to folks that, that the creator of the universe, when he does what he does, it doesn't matter where I'm at
Yeah,
because he's going to do it anyway.
that's right.
He's going to crack that spirit right open. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Faith has been a huge part of it. In fact, my mother she's 78 now. And not too long
Oh,
ago, maybe, I don't know, 10 months or so, I did the spiritual gifts test with her. I said, come on,
okay.
Mom, I'll get online and I'll ask you the questions and I'll input your answer. And then it comes up with this, like your top 5 spiritual gifts, right? And hers were like faith, evangelism, and pastoral, or however the wording goes. But she's like, I'm not a pastor. And I said, well, what does a pastor do? A pastor shepherds people, and a pastor tells a story of the gospel and shares the love of Jesus with everybody. And
Right.
that's what you do. And you do that in dialysis. That's all these things are true. It's been a blessing to be able to minister to my mother and say, you've been such a light and such a joy in our
Right.
lives. But she's like, I know that God wants me still alive because he's got more for me to do. I just haven't figured it out yet. And I said, lady, you are living it and breathing it every single day, giving
Right.
to others. So she's a beauty. She is precious, precious.
Mm,
Yeah.
right. Well, as a caregiver on this journey, what has been some of the challenges, not
Mhm.
just being the caregiver, but also having to be your mother's advocate? Because sometimes the person, the warrior going through it, may not always have the energy and the strength. So,
Mhm.
what have been some of the hurdles and the challenges you all had to face and overcome on this journey?
Yeah, I think that's an incredible question. And I will tell you, as the caregiver, you have the option now. People have the opportunity now to, before they're in that situation, to
Right.
make the decision about what that's going to look like, because you can't do it with one foot in and one foot out. You got to be all in or not. And I'm talking about especially from the advocacy perspective. When you take your loved one and you put them in a facility like a nursing facility or a rehab center, or now the assisted living place. We've been very blessed to have good people around us, but we all make mistakes. And
Right.
really following the details from A to Z on medication, on bathing, on, depending on what their needs are, who's actually coming in and taking care of them when the
Right.
family's not there. And, in our particular case, we spent a lot of time when she was in her worst shape, I would say, because there was a time after a fall where she sustained a head brain injury, and she's recovered from that, thank God.
Thank
Um,
God.
but we were at her side all the time, bathing her and loving on her, and then also making sure that her wounds were cared for, that her
Right.
and going to the right people. So I would say, understanding who the stakeholders are in all of those situations and being purposeful and intentional about getting to know those individuals and make sure they know you and make sure that that staff understands, as long as my loved one is there, we are going to know each other. Okay. And
Right.
so that was part of it. And then, let's see, the advocacy. And then what was the other part of that? Help me out. I
It's
know, I think
like
I
the
missed the part.
resources and the hurdles, right? We talked
Mhm.
about the hurdles and the resources.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So resources, you learn a lot through the process. So a lot of times, you don't always know what your parents have in the way of financial resources. Sometimes that is something that is easy for families to talk about ahead of time. Sometimes it's not. In our case, we just didn't. And as it turned out, there was a substantial amount of there were financial resources that we didn't know were there. So thank my
right.
dad for that, for being an incredible planner and caring and wonderful husband and father throughout our entire lives. But
Right.
there was a lot of research done about what if it's Medicare or Medicaid, or who pays for what, if you need a walker or a wheelchair? Who do you talk to? Well, how about the social worker? And really then you find out what people are made of, because in theory, all of these people have these different responsibilities and they're supposed to come together and work for the benefit of that patient. Sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't, like in any situation. So it's just, really tapping into the resources that you have, asking people that that are in the healthcare industry, or other people that at church or in your life that have gone through this situation, and just pooling ideas from different people in your life. You just get real creative real fast. I'm going to tell
Right.
you, the learning curve is shortened tremendously, because that's your mother laying there, or your father laying there, or your child. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I have
Yeah.
this question is a two-part question.
Okay.
What advice or words of encouragement would you give to a caregiver that's new to this journey, and
Mm,
then one who's wary on this journey?
yeah. So the advice I would give to someone who is new to the process is, look at the big picture. There's a lot of moving parts. Educate yourself, pace yourself, and there will be a lot of people, hopefully, there will be a lot of people that say, hey, you let me know if I can come and sit by your loved one's side and just hold their hand. And our natural tendency is to say, it's all good. I got it. I'll keep you posted. I'm telling you, as those people present themselves, write their names down, write their phone numbers down, and take them up on that offer, because by doing so, you're allowing them to be a blessing for your loved one as well. And that time out, even though in the beginning it's this adrenaline thing that's going on, and it's
Right.
like you're Superwoman, Superman, you've got it all covered. And then eventually you hit a wall because you just run out of energy. And so I would say, if you pace yourself and you really allow those people that want to help to be a part of the process, be intentional about letting them be a part of the process. And for the person who's exhausted, I would say, I understand. I know where you're at. And, um, you know, if there's a way to go to like an administrator at a facility, or, to someone that loves you, and just say, I need a little break, try to get that break. If that looks like I take the weekend and I come up for air, it's going to vary for different people depending on their financial situation, but you've got to get into a place, even if it's in your head, where you
Right.
are, if it's praying, you're praying, if it's meditating, a combination of both. Get into nature, but check out of it for a bit and then come back to it.
Right.
And just stay the course. A person who gets to the point where they're weary, one, it's hard to watch your loved one in that situation, especially when their health is declining or they're not making improvements.
Right.
But I think the other thing is that you just, physically you can only do so much. Mentally, emotionally, you can only do so much, and you have to take care of yourself, whatever that looks like, so that you
Right.
can replenish that fuel, get back in the game. Because if
Right.
you've started that game, chances are you want to finish it.
Right.
So for whatever reason, I think people, it's interesting because, people are motivated for different reasons, or by different reasons, for why they're the caregiver. In
Right.
my case, I wouldn't have it any other way. My sister has been a huge partner in that process, and our husbands have been very supportive of that. But, some people find themselves the only sibling that's willing to step in out
Right.
of a number of people, number of siblings.
Right.
It's, some people can check out at that point when their parents get to that point. Maybe it's a way of preserving oneself, but sometimes that caregiver is the only person. And gosh, we'll lift those folks up in prayer for sure. So
Right.
mhm.
Well, I can't believe our time has gotten away from us so quickly, because,
Yes,
once you get talking about this journey, you can talk forever.
for sure.
I want to say thank you so much, Stephanie, for
Mm,
again, taking the time to come out and share your story.
yeah.
If you can give me 30 seconds, how do you unwind? How does Stephanie take care of Stephanie?
Mm. I've got a drive that literally I've got an hour and a half drive between where my parents live and I live. So I listen to books on audio. I pray a lot. I walk a lot. I talk to my friends, you know. Yeah, so my 30 seconds up. That's pretty much what I do. I set
Right.
time on my calendar though. I will tell you, I have my calendar is color coded and I have
Okay.
the color for me that says, take care of you, Steph. You need more of you time. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Stephanie, it has been my absolute pleasure and
You're so
honor
sweet.
speaking with you, and to everybody that has joined us live here on Sisters Against Kidney Disease.
Mm,
I'm your host, Cyrelle, and I want to say thank you for joining us. Catch us on a replay.
yeah.
We are on this journey, but we're going to be awesome and continue to kick butt and continue to thrive. We love you,
Right.
and we'll see you next week here at
Mm,
9 p.m. Continue to be awesome. Good night.
take care.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yes. Keep me posted.
I will. Please keep me posted.
Thank you.
All right.